Hi, welcome to the series of talks about operational safety excellence by uninjured. In this series, I talk to experienced safety people to get some insights for the community. I thought it would be interesting to look a little bit wider than just the process industry. Other industries have also safety concerns. And this is exactly what the Technical University in Delft is also trying to accomplish. So cross-learnings between different experts in reducing risk. The approach of reducing risk can be very similar, even if the activities are widely different. So the principles remain the same, no matter whether it's healthcare, or chemicals, or pharma, or aviation, or maybe even shipping. It's about reducing risk, reducing waste, and improving leadership and processes. Here's my talk with Dr. Irene Grossmann, a surgeon emergency care at Deventer Hospital and also a safety specialist at the TU Delft. And Jaap de Bruin, former corporate safety manager at DSM, but also experienced safety consultant in both the industry and healthcare. Enjoy and share your feedback with me, please.
The first step you need to take is acknowledge that there is a problem.
A hospital is much more complex organization than an industrial company.
And the first thing they always explain is why they are different.
The standardization of certain processes actually helps you do your work better.
What is our foundation? What do we align with?
Better safety is the result of better control of your processes.
Yes, I'm nearly out of gas,
Yeah.
but I don't have time to go to the gas station.
It not only leads to a safer environment, but also to quality improvement and also to saving costs.
Do small steps every day and let them be led by the frontline people.
So spend time on it. You will get this time back.
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to this safety talk. Today we're going to discuss safety in two very different domains. On the one side, the process industry, and the other side, the healthcare. And I think that looking at the same thing, safety, from two very different angles can get us some insights. And I think insights is what we need to move forward towards zero, to keep making steps. But before we dive in, let me introduce us. So bringing the perspective from healthcare is Irene Grossmann, Assistant Professor of Safety in Healthcare at Delft University of Technology. Also emergency care surgeon and very passionate about changing healthcare, I would say in general. Jaap de Bruin is a very experienced safety manager, mostly at DSM, where he served as the corporate team manager for 9 years. But Jaap's experience is not only in the process industry, because he consulted for healthcare institutions. Currently, Jaap is a forester, but also owns his own safety consultancy practice. My name is Sjoerd Nanninga, director and founder of uninjured, a company that tries to approach safety in a holistic way. Lean methodology software, whatever it takes to get to zero. First question. What makes safety hard to manage? Or is it not hard to manage? What do you guys think?
I experienced it when the management of the company is reassured that safety is important. Then it is not so difficult to manage safety. Then let's say if the management realize that one big bang can end the company, and also when the management realize that when you do on safety, you are better in your process control, and that means that safety improves that working on safety also improves your quality of the product and quality of your service. Then and in this way making some money, then it is not difficult to reassure the management that safety is a profitable thing to do, which is good for the company. And it is also, let's say, safety is also good for the employees, because it is always better not to be hurt at work and to stay healthy than to be hurt at work. So basically, when management is there, then it is not so hard anymore.
Okay, so it starts with leadership, but also I see you connecting dots like, okay, it's not only like focusing on safety, it's also a starting point for quality, for employee engagement, many things.
Yeah, better safety is the result of better control of your processes. So you have to work on control of your processes, and then the safety, but also quality, but also possibly efficiency will be the result.
Okay.
Difficult topic, because I agree with all these statements, and actually exactly this was what was being said at the summit I attended last week in Switzerland, which was on the global action plan on patient safety that has been initiated by the WHO. And also from a theoretical point of view, I completely agree that if safety is a priority and has been established inside the organization, is an integral part of the organization, it not only leads to a safer environment, but also to quality improvement, and also to saving costs, also for healthcare. The problem with healthcare, I think, is that the existence of the problem is not recognized, is not acknowledged, not to its full extent. And I've been wondering about this question for quite a while now. For why is it possible that those things that are available, that the knowledge that is available to improve healthcare in that sense, just doesn't come along to that domain. And I struggled with that, and also Joop Groeneweg struggles with that. And then I came into this summit, and exactly the same struggle appeared. So I was really happy to be there and think, okay, finally, it's indeed confirmed that the first step you need to take is acknowledge that there is a problem.
Yes, yes.
And without that, it's extremely difficult to improve anything. And that is, I think, the first problem that we need to address in healthcare. And I'm actually quite, because I know healthcare from the inside. I've been working in healthcare, and I also know the dynamics of why we think the way we think. But I'm also very curious about your experiences with healthcare, with your knowledge, and what you saw happening in healthcare that could explain the problem, and also give us leverage points to change that.
I must say, I have been working in healthcare quite some time ago. It was, let's say, about 20 years ago now. And then at that moment, patient safety was not so very well spread, and it was an upcoming thing with Harry Molendijk. Possibly you know him, because he was one of the guys who started with this in his hospital. And I was close to him, and so I also learned about what happened in the hospital over there. And I soon learned that it was, let's say, what happened in that hospital was also quite normal in other hospitals at that moment. But a lot has been done with safety in healthcare in the last 20 years. So I'm not and in the hospital I was consulting, they made rather big steps in the years that I have seen that. But also there I was surprised that there is a high level of knowledge also with the whole medical staff, and still it is difficult to establish a safety culture. And at that moment, I experienced also that a hospital is much more complex organization than an industrial company. And let's say an industrial company can much more easily define their goals, and then the management is there. But in the hospital there are more parties who can have different views on that, and also different goals, and that makes it sometimes very complex. And yeah, we investigated quite some incidents that happened in the hospital, and then you saw it clearly that on one hand the one party wants to go on the right side, and the other party has just a necessity to go the other way, and then the fighting starts, and then yeah, it is difficult to get along with each other to go on one route, for instance.
So is it then a lack of like a very clear management structure in healthcare that?
Yeah, I think it is difficult, for instance, to standardize in hospitals, because every surgeon has his own way of working, his own material, his own, and simply say, now we do it in that way, and everybody has to go that way. That is not an easy task. I have experienced. I don't know how you see that, Irene, but
I do.
That is really on the details, sometimes.
Yeah, I do recognize it in two ways actually. That there is not a clear leadership in the hospital as there is in the industry. Like if you take Shell Global or Shell the Netherlands or Shell Europe, there is a clear leadership, there's a clear division of responsibilities. And in healthcare, this division of responsibilities is lacking. So that means that there is in a hospital not just one leadership that decides on what should be done.
What should be done? No.
And a part of that, the other topic that you mentioned, to agree with one another on one specific goal and a way to go there, that's indeed a difficult topic in healthcare, because there are so many differences of opinion, and there's no really established leadership in that says, okay, we're going to head this way, and this is the way we're going to do it. And there's a lot of individuals deciding for themselves what is the best way to go, and that together does not make it right. And one of those things that is actually one of my students is going to do her thesis on that is indeed how does standardization and professional autonomy relate to one another.
Yeah.
And one of the problems in healthcare is that there's a high level of uncertainty. I think a higher level than in many industries, but I'm not sure, but I think, which means that a lot of things cannot be standardized. A lot of things can, but also quite some things cannot be standardized because you have to act in quite a complex environment, a lot of information coming to you. And as a medical professional, you have the end responsibility for making decisions. And you have to take that all into account. And there you need some space to decide what to do. And that's very difficult to catch in a standardized method. It also makes that we are used to making decisions as we see fit without having real knowledge on the effects on safety.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of difficult to explain. There must be professional autonomy, but at the same time, it is prohibiting us of really seeing the issues with safety.
Yeah.
And I think what we need is additional knowledge, especially on the medical professional level, as I am myself. Now that I'm at Delft University of Technology for 1.5 years, I've learned so many things that I see much more clearly. This is where professional autonomy is a good thing, but this is where professional autonomy just lacks the real knowledge on safety issues. And that's where we should address those. But as a medical professional, you are trained in such a narrow environment, such a bubble, that you just don't know. And if you don't know, you cannot change. So it's neither a very good idea to blame healthcare professionals on, not pursuing any safety goals, as sometimes is being done, because if you don't know, you don't know. So to me, it's a matter of looking for getting this knowledge into healthcare, but also showing healthcare professionals what the benefits can be from, for instance, standardization where it is fit, develop it together with them. Also look at the responsibilities that are inside a hospital organization, and make a kind of a balance between what it nearly needs to be in a professional autonomy, where's the benefit from that, and where does it need to be in standardization. But those two topics, those two domains, hardly talk with one another. So I think that's one of the bridges that one of the gaps you need to bridge.
And I must say that in process industry, there's not always like this great enthusiasm about standardization, because I think I now have visited like many hundred plants, and the first thing they always explain is why they are different. Right? And then usually we have a talk and I can say, yes, you're special, but you're uniquely the same, because there's, I think, always this layer of the things that you can standardize on, because there's like certain rules, procedures that are a foundation. And I think the discussion should be around what is our foundation? What do we align with? What do we comply with overall? And what are the things that need variation? And I think it's also a good question. Where do we need variation instead of, yes, we start with variation and maybe there's a little bit we can standardize. I think if you truly believe that there's a best way to do things, you try and find this way, and then you might find, but it's not always possible. So you create a little bit of slack of latitude for people to make decisions on the spot, because of course you cannot capture the whole of reality in some rules, but you can lay, I think, a good foundation in also in the processes that are followed. How do people communicate with each other? What are the minimum conditions for starting either a maintenance job or a surgery? Right? Yes. I think those are in that layer. There's still so much to do.
Yes, I think, and I think one of the things we need to do is to show that a standardization of certain processes actually helps you do your work better. Because one of the most difficult parts of being a medical professional is that you constantly have to compensate for all the errors that are in the processes, which is extremely tiring and frustrating and annoying. But we are used to it, so we hardly see it anymore. We just, correct for things that should not need to be corrected for. Yeah. We actually even take some pride in it, that we are doing that constantly. But we hardly ever ask ourselves, can we just not organize it better? And if you ask that question, then they say, well, forget about it. You will never make it work. Just get used to it. And I think there's a difficult, that's one of the main pitfalls of healthcare, that we are so used to solving the problem on the spot. We take some pride in it. I solved the problem again. And
every day the same problems are solved.
Every day the same problems. And actually we're teaching one another the workarounds. I happened to get an instruction yesterday where somebody was just honestly telling me, we have this software. And this software is actually helping you, but here's a little mistake in it. So every time that you are using this, must be aware that you turn this off, otherwise things go wrong.
Yeah.
And I was like, so we need to correct the software. No, that's too difficult. So this is the way we are used to work. And I mean, my life would be much easier if they just would make it work, let it work in a consistent way, that it just worked properly. But we're not used to that. And I think that's habits is you're born, you're grown into that. You're just, that's the way it is. And the acceptance of that reality, that's what we should let go and see that we can make our lives much more easy. I mean, it's difficult enough with all the uncertainties that you cannot solve. Why not solve all those, annoying organizational things?
Yeah. Now, and industry is also busy with that, because industry has exactly the same issues, of course, that all kind of little things do not work correctly, and the industry is fighting that, trying to all these tiny little things, solve them, and then try to make the processes smooth and that you can rely on them.
Yeah.
So this is hooks into your earlier statement, Jaap, about just the great processes, high quality processes as the basis for safety, for quality, for efficiency, for everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. And how do you do that? I mean, how do you make this process of this continuous improvement work?
Now, first of all, and you said it already, educate. Learn people how to do it. Learn people why it is important. Learn people what is the result. Show people examples where it worked out fantastically, and then do it together. Because these things can only be made together. Because not only let's say one person is confronted with it, but basically the whole team is confronted with it, and you have to do it together with everybody. So there should be a good communication structure between your work, that everybody can participate in an open way to solve all these little small things. And that is also not so easy sometimes, because when you have let's say an hierarchical situation in your workplace, where the boss is saying you have to do that, then let's say the other workers are not so encouraged to support this kind of small improvements. And also that is in industry quite a struggle. That managers have to work in another way than they are used to work in the past, and that they really support and encourage people on the lower levels to participate in improving all these little flaws.
Yeah, well, in healthcare, I think people are quite motivated to report those flaws, even if it's against hierarchy, because you see the patient's lives at stake. So
Yes.
they're often quite motivated to take action, but they also say it's just useless to do so because nothing will happen anyway. That's something that you hear over and over again. Nothing will happen anyway. And that's so discouraging.
Yeah, I think the only way to break through this, because I recognize this theme as well.
Yeah.
And I think the pattern that we need to break through is, of course, there's this clutter, this noise of this constant waste, these things that go wrong, right? So somehow you need to start with some wrap up and saying, okay, these things cost us this in terms of risk, these things cost us this amount of hours. So you have some data where you can actually say it's worthwhile to solve this. So how would our lives be if we don't have any, we don't have to correct our software all the time, right? Or we don't have queues with patients or contractors waiting all the time. What's the end situation there? And I think there, what you need to move to is making tiny steps every day instead of having this grand vision, overhaul working practices, software, but do small steps every day and let them be led by the frontline people. And I think they're also as leaders, managers, consultants, we have to move from, yes, I have this great idea, can you execute it, to what is your idea, what you can do tomorrow. Make a little step so there is a feeling of success, and going from it will always be the same, they are going to do something about it maybe, to I made a little step yesterday, I succeeded, and I can do another step tomorrow, right? And I think all these little steps are much more powerful than all these grand initiatives and cultures and whatever you have out there.
Yeah, I strongly agree. I think culture is a resultant of a better cooperation. I've seen quite strong differences between hospitals, where a cycle of improvement is acknowledged and also appreciated, and where you see the improvements going on. And hospitals where there is some kind of blockade somewhere in this process, either by the hierarchy or the organization not supporting actual improvements. And you see a huge difference between those hospitals. I won't mention which hospitals, but you see a huge difference. And I think if you are encouraged to speak up, and it's listened to, and something happens, you will be, willing to participate again, and you will also trust it will happen. So your tone of voice will also change, which it's like a continuous positive spiral.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen in healthcare as well. And I think healthcare is very strong in doing this because they're so motivated and so engaged.
Yeah.
So if there is a industry, it will work. It will be there. But the lack is still that we do not acknowledge that there is a problem, that something can be done.
Yeah.
We think nothing can be done. We think it doesn't really make a difference if we, for instance, standardize, or that we make an effort of communication, like the structured communications around an OR or a patient transfer, and that it really makes a difference. We just don't believe it somehow. We're not shown the clear results, and therefore we think, but we will solve it anyway.
Yeah.
And we do not realize that 15% of patients suffer a medical error or any procedural error in hospital. 50% of all patients. I mean, that's really a lot.
Yeah.
Patient death has not significantly decreased since 2008. I mean, it's shifts a little bit, but there are also an underestimation, at least in the Netherlands, because we only count the deaths resulting from direct errors and not from organizational errors, not outside of hospital. We don't count them at all. So that means that there are more than 1,000, maybe 2,000, or maybe even more patients a year in the Netherlands alone dying from avoidable errors.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And the WHO thinks that as well, so that supports me quite a lot.
Yeah.
We don't even see it. It's not an issue because we think somehow either it does not happen, it's not true, or that it's not solvable. And I think it's solvable without, doing anything bad to the professional autonomy, because that's what many medical personnel, healthcare workers are afraid of, that they are losing their autonomy. I think it's on the contrary. I think they can even be strengthened in using their professional autonomy to, catch those last errors, but that as a fundamental, the basics, the organization should be proper. And that already gives quite a lot of rest indeed. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. And the remaining errors that will always appear because of this high uncertainty, this high complexity, those we can solve. But now we are busy solving problems that should be on a different level.
So for healthcare safety, what is kind of the next step? Because you describe a situation where I think some of the data are still being challenged, right?
Yeah.
So what needs to happen if you look at safety in healthcare and all the avoidable incidents, people dying, getting hurt, or just the wrong treatment?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at that whole domain, what's the step that healthcare needs to make to move on?
I think two steps to start with. One is full acknowledgement that there is a problem. And the next step is that we start to see the unnecessary risks we take inside an organization, our organizations. We normalize the risks.
Yeah.
We find them acceptable and unavoidable. We don't even see them as risks anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's the real first step we need to take. I went back to the hospital care now part-time, also to support my work at the Delft University. And I see much clearer now where things go wrong and where they can be improved. It's rather easy, actually. It's not that difficult at all.
It's not that
Actually,
difficult.
no,
That's also
I say,
my
okay,
experience.
there, this you need to improve. This is just an accident waiting to happen.
Nice.
And if we start as healthcare workers, all of us, start seeing those, and we address those, and we put them with the organization, say, this needs to be improved. We don't accept this electronic health records dossier anymore as it is because it's a mess. And we just don't accept it anymore. And we demand a change from the company who's responsible for issuing this. I mean, then things start to change. But as long as we keep on solving all those problems and all those risks, and we see them as our responsibility, nothing will change. And once we see it, we are going to address it. And then I think you can start with those improvement cycles, Jaap, you were talking about. That you start solving all those tiny problems and little bit bigger problems continuously. And that's the way it should be. And that we can do. That I'm positive about. But first, those first 2 steps.
Yeah, okay.
Now, yeah, in the time I was working in a hospital, I was also very impressed by the number of hours that the medical specialists are working. They are working the whole day from early on till sometimes very late in the evening, and have let's say almost no time for reflection or whatever. And they are executing things the whole day long, and it is an enormous pressure on doing that, and just to reflect on your work, what can be improved. There is absolutely no time for it, or they don't do it. There was once was in my came a specialist who is doing the heart surgery or the dottering, and he said, yeah, I do dottering, about 18 dottering operations per day. And in the evening, I try to analyze what was the effect. But all my colleagues, they are so tired at the end of the day. They are, let's say, very happy to be at home and looking to the television, and have absolutely no clue to think about how to improve their work. And when I see what I do and I analyze that, I see that there are really simple things that I can improve. And what do you think of that? And I was shocked, because I thought, my God, this is so highly specialist, and he can see when he look back so clearly, so easily, what can be improved by his own work. Why don't do that? Do it.
Yeah.
Do it
Yeah.
together with your colleagues. But there is no time for it.
Yeah, we don't allocate time for it.
Yeah.
I had the same experience when I was a resident. I actually made a registry to observe our results, because there were some things puzzling me. So I actually built this registry, and we very easily found some leverage points for improvement, which were also done. And that demonstrates again the motivation of healthcare workers. If they see the problem, they will solve it.
Yeah.
But it took quite some time. Actually, it took a lot of time in the evenings. And you cannot expect that. And somehow we don't see that you need to allocate time for that and spend time on that in order to be able to improve those things. But
I think it's also a bit like, yes, I'm nearly out of gas. I'm driving, but I don't have time to go to the gas station, right? And
yes.
You'll end up somewhere that's not a nice place. And I think even in industrial world, labor shortages, a large group of experienced people are retiring, going into pension. I think you also see the struggle here because there's so much to do, but still I see time being allocated for reflection, right? Because if you, by spending 4 hours, can save 400, that's an easy call, right? But you do need to spend the 4 hours.
Yeah, well, actually, one of the things that came out of the registry was we looked at the number of complications and also how they were divided. And I agree with my supervisor in that time. The best thing to do things properly is to do it right at once. So spend time on it, and you will get this time back, because otherwise you will keep on solving all those little problems. And that for us it was very clear that the investment you make, you get back in tenfold. But that's contested. People simply don't believe you and don't spend the time also looking into that problem. And that again has to do with the acknowledgement of that there is a problem, and it can be solved. And if we don't do it ourselves, then how can we somehow make a structure that we need to look at those data and that we need to look at our own performance in a structured way? Because it pays off. I'm convinced of that. I've seen that happening now for 15 years. It does pay off. Yeah, but it's a difficult question. Why don't we do that? I don't know. And there are enough medical specialists, so there are enough to take over some of the task of the other ones. So if there is a time we can do it, it is now.
Yeah. A question for you, looking more at the industrial domain. So where do you see the state of industrial world? So what is the barrier that the industrial world is currently running into, and from there, what's the next step that has to be taken there?
What I see is that let's say the hardware is mostly quite okay. There are of course some exceptions, but mostly it is okay. And let's say the systems are in grosso modo are also quite okay. So the challenge is here the culture of the company, and the culture and the way the management is leading the workforce. What I do sometimes still now scans in different companies, and there you see mostly that where the improvement can be made is the culture of the company, the culture, the way how they work together.
So can you specify a little bit around safety? So what's the step in safety that they need to make? Is it like between management and frontline, or what's the biggest step there?
Yeah, it is especially let's say on supervisor level. So it is the workers, and then mostly there are about 10 workers, one supervisor for 10 workers. Now the management is all okay. And they want safety, they want improvement in safety, but the problem is to educate the frontline supervisors, because that is, let's say, that is the level that gives direct supervision to the workforce, and they are mostly, they have to work in another way as they are used to work. So they have to encourage people, they have to talk with people, and that is mostly the supervisors are selected of being a good worker, but they are not by definition a good manager of people. So there some supervisors are good, but are also very good supervisors who are absolutely not capable of doing this kind of work. So what you see there is that you have to select different people for supervisory work, when you are in this kind of when you
Yeah.
want to improve further. Yeah.
So they moved up through the ranks because they were intelligent, skilled at the technical aspects of the work.
Yes.
And now you also want them to take a different role, or the role is changing, and maybe
The
you
role
need
is
to select
changing, yeah.
other people.
The role is changing, and not all people are, let's say, their character is not, or their skills are not in that area.
Yeah.
So then you end up in a problem that let's say the improvements that you want to do, these people are not very well capable of managing the team to do that.
So let's take that one. So one side we have a technically very skilled person, became in charge of the whole operations,
Yes.
but is now unable to communicate like this more holistic way of working. And so let's bring that to healthcare. So typically, of course, you would have a highly skilled specialist, very good at a like technical operation, right? It's of course in the context of health, but it's doing something very technically very well, leading a group of people, other specialists, nurses who are also specialists, but I think still strongly led by the, let's say, highest ranking technical person.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a little bit different from industry, because the ones who are supposed to lead a team are not the good workers who are promoted.
Yeah.
It's more like a historical hierarchical construct, and it's the same nearly all over the world. So somehow it does work. For instance, on the OR, the surgeon is the leader, the team leader. And I think in healthcare is the problem that this is not being taught in a constructive way, but it's more copying the behavior of the others. And if you happen to encounter a very good mentor, like surgeons who really demonstrate a good example of how to lead a team and how to involve everybody, you might learn it yourself if you are keen enough to take over that behavior. But it's not that it's been taught by definition good leaders. So I've encountered, happily for me, quite a lot of very good leaders, very constructive leaders who also teach you how to manage a team. But it's all from experience. But I've also encountered leaders who really gave the bad example, very authoritative, very blaming culture, not taking responsibility when things go wrong, while taking the credit when things go right. If you are, being taught in that kind of environment, which can happen because nobody can screen on whether it happens or not, and you take over that behavior, which happens in healthcare, then you have quite a bad leaders. So it's a difficult task because it's not explicitly a part of your education. The focus is very much on the technical skills and not so much on the leadership skills. That is changing, I must say, but it's not changing rapidly enough. And it's also, it remains in this bubble, and there are too many not good team leaders in healthcare to really change that. But we are going the right way in my experience, but it is an issue, and I think that should be much more explicit. A lot of medical specialists who have finished their residency recently and start working as a medical specialist, they all say the same: I'm not prepared for doing this. I'm prepared for doing this procedure, but I'm not prepared for handling all the responsibilities and all the leadership skills that I need to properly do my work.
Yeah.
And that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again,
Yeah,
a lack of knowledge.
you see in industry that there is, let's say, there are a lot of training efforts to improve the skills also of the leaders. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we could use a little bit more of that, and also a bit more reflection on how you act in certain circumstances. I remember it's just a tiny example of how things can work. But when I was doing my intensive care fellowship, I did that on top of the surgical residency. They did a video training, like they made was an exercise environment, but one where the pressure was quite high. So you showed natural behavior, what you, because they really put pressure
They
on
can
you.
make it
So
real.
they made it feel really real. So, and it was taken on video. And I saw myself on the video. And then I discovered a tendency, which is very annoying for other people, that the moment I start getting concentrated, I start to mumble. And I start to, think for myself, what's going on here? What's this patient have? What's the next step we should take? And all under very high pressure. Like the patient is dying, I have to act now.
Yeah.
And I saw two things. I saw one negative thing, this mumbling and going inward. So that people did not understand anymore what my thoughts were. At the same time, after a while, I was very open to criticism. So this video reflection taught me that I have the skills to engage people and listen to people, which is a very strong leadership skill. But at the same time, that I should be aware that I am inward, and when I start thinking that I'm not communicating with my environment. And those people really were thinking, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And if I don't give them the feedback at that moment. So I learned really to start speaking out loud consciously. And that helped quite a great deal. And then I thought, why did nobody in my education tell me this? Because they must have seen it from the moment I started entering those operating rooms for 6 years. They must have noticed that this was a problem. And looking backwards, I was thinking, oh yeah, sometimes somebody said, can you speak out loud? But I never, realized what was going on and what the issue was there, that it really was a unnecessary risk. But why didn't I learn this early on in my education? Like, okay, you have to speak out loud, make it a conscious act. If it's a pitfall from you, it's a weakness from you, that's fine. But this is a solution. And
Yeah.
ever since, I've been actively thinking in those situations, okay, now it's a moment to have a timeout and to speak out loud. Those are my thoughts. What do you think? It's actually quite easy to do. But that's not something that's baked into our residency. And I think that's really a failure. And also, we try to compensate for if somebody's technically very skilled at something. But they are not so very good communicators. We tend to underestimate the importance of being a good communicator. So what often happens is that we say, okay, but he's very good in what he does, so we will compensate a bit for the communication error, not noticing that this communication error may be more important than the content, the technical content. And we don't demand that he is just as good in improving his technical skills as in improving communication skills.
Do you see that different? Yeah. Do you see that in the industry, the skill requirement of being a good communicator weighs as heavy as the technical skills?
Now, for certain positions, absolutely. But I think it is not so critical on life and death as in the healthcare world. Yeah, we at DSM we have done a lot of trainings of managers where they let's say act, where they have to do things, and where is a coach who observes, let's say, the behavior of the manager, and then give feedback to all the people. What is his behavior? And mostly people are not aware of their own pitfalls of their own behavior because it is completely normalized. They have done it all their lives, and nobody has said to them, what they really do. And if then you have, let's say, if you simulate a kind of role play where people have to do a certain thing, which is, and then they show their normal behavior, and then suddenly, somebody else from outside observes that, and after the, let's say, after the task that has been done, you have a discussion about what he has seen, and that is for some people eye openers, completely eye openers, and that also helps tremendously in improving, let's say, the culture and the way managers or supervisors work.
But is
But
it
there are
always
special, there are courses for that, and they are very nice, very appreciated by the people, because there are so many new insights for them, and they also see, oh, now I know exactly what is the cause of the behavior of the others, that I'm initiating the behavior of the others, but I was not aware that I was doing that.
Yeah.
And that also helps tremendously.
So there's continuous investing in those types of skills for people.
Yeah,
And
that is industry
should
is
it,
doing that.
yeah, should it not be mandatory in healthcare to do things like this? I mean, it's critical what we do.
Yeah, I think it is. I think also it is absolutely very helpful for, and I think it should be mandatory.
Yeah, because I've also been thinking, when I got my license, I really felt this responsibility that, okay, I have the right to decide on life and death and take decisions under uncertainty, which is a huge responsibility and sometimes extremely scary. And I think it's not more than normal that you submit yourself to, looking at all your skills. And of course, I found it kind of, hoe zeg je dat, scary to do it the first time, but it helped me a lot. So I was really happy, and I'm still happy to do it again, because it just helps you to see your pitfalls, but also your good things. I saw also
Growth is not
things,
without pain.
Yeah.
No, and it's also, I was quite critical of myself, and then I saw this video, and then I was thinking, I'm not doing that bad at all. So it's not only the weakness you see, it's also your strengths. And but I think if you take up such a huge responsibility, you've had so much training, and you are paid quite well, I think it's part of your job. It belongs to your job. And without self-criticism, things go out of hand, but you have the life of others in your hands. So yeah, I would find it quite normal if those things would be normalized in healthcare. And we see that it's still seen as a threat. And is that different than in industry? Is it also experienced as a threat, or is it more normal there, that like, no, just part of the job?
Yeah, when we started with it, it was of course new, and for some people it was a threat, but it is also the way you handle it, and it was very appreciated by the people, and then suddenly some other people heard about it, and they also wanted that course, and now and so on and so on and so on, and so. There was in no time that everybody wanted to do it, and then it is not, and the big boss started with it, and so, and he also was confronted with his strong points, but also with the points that can be improved further, and that is also the attitude that you are acknowledged for your strong points. And that you can also see, okay, that is a point there I can make a step forward. And that is very helpful for people, because everybody wants basically to do the best. There's nobody who wants to do a lousy job.
No.
At least I have not found anybody.
No, me neither.
Should it be a skill like that's a minimum requirement? Like, for example, if you if you run a chemical plant, you need a degree in chemical engineering, or if you're a doctor, you are required to have a medical degree. But should you also have like a communications degree to do both roles?
Yeah.
I think well, it's already in the residency in the sense that it's an official requirement in the CanMeds competencies, but it does not mean it's been carried out in the way it could be. For example, it's very easily that you say, "Oh, you communicate well because you're friendly," and that's enough. Well, that's not really what they mean. So you can put it in, but then it's still not effectuated in the way that I think it should be appreciated. I think communication skills, and I've not been the best communicator, I must admit, but I think communication skills are much more important and pose much more risks to a working environment than we appreciate right now. I think we underestimate the importance of it.
Wrap up.
Yes.
So from the perspective of industrial world or the medical world, do you think that we could get to zero? Because this is the big goal, right? So no more unnecessary accidents, incidents, patients, contractors being hurt. So is this possible? And if you look at, because we are currently not there, so what is now the biggest hurdle? Question to you both.
Yeah, let's say if you, from a theoretical point of view, if you analyze each incident, that you can always find, let's say, a solution for the problem. That if we have done that, then this incident should not be happened. There is almost no incident where, let's say, something falling out the air and nobody could foresee that, a meteor or something right on the head of the person. It's mostly, let's say, that something can be done to prevent the incident. So theoretically, yes. But I have also seen that organizations who are, let's say, 25 years without an incident, they get the idea that it will not happen to me. We are already 25 years without an incident, so they are getting less critical. They start to be complacent, and then at a certain moment the incident happens again. So if you are there, or if you are almost there, there is still a pitfall where you fall back.
Okay.
So it is damn difficult.
Yeah.
Well, we are not there yet at all. I think we are at the beginning. And if you the distinction between avoidable and unavoidable damage in healthcare is rather difficult. I think what is sometimes called unavoidable is still avoidable. So where's the line? I think looking at the engagement and the skills and knowledge that is available in healthcare, it should be possible. It should definitely be possible. I mean, there's enough damage that is really unavoidable. It should be possible to achieve that, but it will take huge investments and also accepting knowledge from processes, process optimizations, culture, sharing information. And we've made steps, that's true, but it's far not enough yet. It starts, I already said that, it starts with acknowledging that there is a problem and that there is a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Thank you very much.
It was
Thank
a
you
pleasure for me.
for inviting us.